your time. We know it's cold, but the rain cleared, so
Hey.
So as you all know, you are coming here tonight to partake in a Candlelight Vigil, and tonight marks the 16th anniversary of Guantanamo Bay opening under threat of the War on Terror. And I want to thank, first and foremost, all of the Muslim youth organizers who put on this event. Can we give them a round of applause, please? Woo! This event was put on to not only raise awareness, but to kind of jumpstart people to take action. A lot of the times we think about what's the point? What's the point of a vigil? A lot of people ask me, do you think people even care? Do you think that this will actually change anything? But we can't have that kind of mentality, right? Any day is a day to resist against American empire. This prison is a blatant disregard for human rights. This is a violation of human rights and against every statute of law and international law. And we have to stand against that, no matter what, under any circumstance. So when I say Guantanamo, you say shut it down. Guantanamo!
Shut it down!
Guantanamo!
Shut it down!
Guantanamo!
Shut it down!
I really, really appreciate your energy and your presence tonight. We need to stand together. We need to come together in these times. We're being torn apart, but we have to stand with one another. The rising tide of Islamophobia is just going to keep coming. And there's a reason why it's racial. Islamophobia is being racialized. Anyone who looks differently is marked as a perpetrator, someone who's trying to inflict violence. We have to stand against that. We have to come together. And so I hope that you all come learn something and spread awareness to your communities. And I want to thank again, I'm going to keep thanking you all because it's a big deal that you show up. We may not all look the same or think alike, but it's about showing up for each other. It's about standing up for what's right. So I'm going to pass it on to Jamila Osman, and she's going to talk a little bit about, give us more context to this event. Thank you. And again, my name is Marwa. I grew up in Portland. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
So this is Miyad, and Miyad is going to give you guys just some 101 information on Guantanamo Bay.
Okay. I'm going to read a quick part from the zine about Guantanamo Bay and the history of Guantanamo Bay and its opening. So this part, what was that?
Speak up.
Speak up? Okay. Let's see. Can you guys hear me? Yeah? Okay. So I'm gonna read the history of Guantanamo Bay from the zine. It's on page 3 of the zine. Okay, this detention center at Guantanamo Bay opened on January 11th, 2002 to hold the detainees from the post-9/11 War on Terror. The Bush administration argued that federal courts had no jurisdiction over foreigners captured abroad and held in Cuba. By labeling them unlawful combatants rather than prisoners of war, they sought to deny the basic rights guaranteed by prisoners of war by the Geneva Conventions. The Supreme Court repeatedly found that key pieces of the Bush administration's detention policy were in violation of the U.S. Constitution. But the prison was still open and remains open. Because many detainees were tortured at Guantanamo and almost all of the people held there were imprisoned without trial, Guantanamo quickly became an internationally recognized symbol of torture and abuse. As a result, not only did the treatment of people held at Guantanamo violate basic morality, Guantanamo was also a recruiting tool for terrorist organizations. By 2008, Guantanamo had become such a practical problem for the U.S. that by the end of his presidency, President Bush publicly called for it to be closed, and eventually so did Obama, and yet it still remains open.
Thank you.
So going up next will be Jamila Osman. Or, sorry, Ivan.
Okay, so it looks like a lot of you guys already have candles, but can you not hear me? Okay, so it looks like a lot of you guys already have candles, but for those of you that don't, just come up and grab one. And also, Azine, if you'd like to follow along, because it's important for what's going to happen next.
Does anyone need a candle?
Yeah, does anyone need one? Is everyone good? Oh.
Can I get a light again? Hold it down like that. Get that wax on it.
Okay, so what we're going to be doing is I'm going to recite all the names of the current 41 detainees at Guantanamo Bay, and every time I say one of those names, you guys are going to be saying presented. So for practice, if I say Malcolm X,
Presente!
okay, looks like you guys got it down.
It goes beyond like being mean to Muslims, right? It goes beyond pulling people off of airplanes for speaking Arabic. It's Islamophobia is not, as the populace would have you believe, something new. Islamophobia is the American way. It is unjust war. It is occupation of Muslim majority lands. It is drone strikes on our countries. It is hijab and niqab bans. It is the construction of Muslim women as submissive and without agency, and then using that construction to justify like imperial wars in our countries. Islamophobia is this construction that has been really successful, separating Muslims into two camps, right? Good Muslims and bad Muslims. And so what we don't understand is, like, in a country like this, in a world like this, there are no good Muslims. We are all in danger of the kind of violence that Islamophobia has, the kind of violence that sends men to places like Guantanamo Bay. Islamophobia is counter-terrorism programs. It's this hysterical fear of refugees from Muslim majority countries that are also victims of imperial aggression. And so all of these things are related. None of these things are in isolation. And so how ironic then that tonight, in a country that champions itself as like the champion of human rights, we are agitating for the closure of Guantanamo Bay, one of the most egregious human rights violations in history. And so the U.S., so we're saying a lot tonight, but we are saying that the United States has no right on an international stage to call itself the enforcer of human rights when they are continuously violating the human rights, not just of people living here within the borders of the settler state, but abroad and in all of our countries. And so these are all functions of Islamophobia. The war on terror is an imperial war against Muslim people. And so when we call for the closure of Guantanamo Bay, we recognize that Guantanamo Bay did not happen in isolation, that Guantanamo Bay is not the only detention facility of this kind in the world. And so we're standing here tonight in solidarity with past prisoners of Guantanamo Bay and current prisoners of Guantanamo Bay and those who have died at Guantanamo Bay and all victims of U.S. state-sanctioned violence, whether they live here in the United States or abroad. And so like Marwa led us in a chant earlier, when I say Guantanamo, you say shut it down. Guantanamo!
Shut it down!
Guantanamo!
Shut it down!
Guantanamo!
Shut it down!
And so, in order to center the voices of the men that have been detained at Guantanamo Bay, we put together this zine that has some artwork and some poetry written by the inmates at Guantanamo Bay. And so we're going to read some of these poems to bring their voices into the space with us. Some of the art that you'll see there recently, a lot of the art has been able to leave the prison via a lot of the attorneys for these inmates. And so recently, in a reversal, the United States government has decided that these men no longer own their art, and that this art is now property of the U.S. government, and that they can burn this art if they choose to. And so now art can no longer leave the prison. And so art has been, for a lot of the men, like you'll see in the zine, they've said that they've used the art as a way to keep in touch with their own humanity, that people are continuously trying to take away from them. And so now the government has also tried to take that. So we're going to start by reading a poem called They Fight for Peace by Shakir Abdurrahim Amir. And so as you'll see in his bio, it's on page 9. Shakir Abdurrahim Amir is a Saudi Arabian citizen and British resident who has been detained at Guantanamo Bay since early 2002. A leader among the Guantanamo detainees, Amir helped broker an end to one of the hunger strikes at the prison. He elicited a concession from the military that would allow the detainees to form a grievance committee and treat them in a manner consistent with the Geneva Convention. In September 2005, just days after the grievance committee was formed, the military disbanded it and sent Amir to solitary confinement, where he remains today. And so here's his poem. Peace, they say, peace of mind, peace on earth, peace of what kind? I see them talking, arguing, fighting. What kind of peace are they looking for? Why do they kill? What are they planning? Is it just talk? Why do they argue? Is it so simple to kill? Is this their plan? Yes, of course. They fight for peace. So the next poem that we're going to look at is on page 11, To My Father. Is there anybody that would like to read this poem out loud?
"2 years have passed in faraway prisons. 2 years my eyes untouched by coal. 2 years my heart sending out messages to the homes where my family dwells, where lavender cotton sprouts for grazing herds that leave well fed." Oh no, I'm gonna butcher these words. Oh, Flaish? Okay. "Oh, Flaish, explain to those who visit our home how I used to live. I know your thoughts are swirled in a whirlwind when you hear the voice of my anguished soul. Send sweet peace and greetings to Boumair. Kiss him on his forehead, for he is my father. Fate has divided us like the parting of a parent from a newborn. Oh, Father, this is the prison of injustice. Its inequity makes the mountains weep. I have committed no crime. I'm guilty of no offenses. Curved claws have I, but I have been sold like a flattened sheep."
In the cage. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, we are the heroes of the time. We are the proud youth. We are the hairy lions. We live in the stories now. We live in the epics. We live in the public heart. We are the shield before the oppressor. Our courage is like a mountain. The pharaoh of our time is restless because of us. The chief of the White Palace, like other sinful chiefs, cannot see our patience. The whirlpool of our tears is moving fast towards him. No one can endure the power of this flood. It's mostly
it mostly happens in these cages, that the stars at midnight bring good news, that we will surely succeed and the world will wait for us, the caravan of baggage.
So the last